am Dr. Sahoo from Department of Botany, University of Delhi. I am the Secretary of the Indian Phycological Society, who has been working in the field of phycology or algae, study of algae, for the last 30 years. And one of my most important job is how to transform the research for the benefit of the common man in the society. So one of my major goal of my research is how to use algae for various purposes, for the rural development, for the benefit of the people, for the industries, and to find out new innovations in algae. Algae is the future, as it has several uses, and there is no other plants in the plant kingdom which will have so many uses as algae has. So it has a great potential. Okay. Algae is a very interesting group of organisms, and algae is having a very long history. It is one of the first organisms which originated in the system. And as the demand for man's food and other products are getting wider and wider, you have to look for new resources, and algae is one of the organisms which grows in the ocean, which grows in the water, on the land, and not so much of exploited. So there is a lot of challenges which are basically left. So I like challenge, and it's always good to do something challenging and something unusual, and algae presents the most challenging system to study in terms of exploration, in terms of invention, to look for something new. So that is one of the things why I am interested in algae, number one. And there are new and newer applications which are coming up from algae, because the terrestrial systems has been totally exploited to a great extent. Algae has not been exploited. Now, if you see, there are two groups of algae. One is microalgae, another is macroalgae, and macroalgae are mostly known as seaweeds, which have several uses we use to have in our day-to-day life, starting from brushing our teeth with the toothpaste, or having food applications, textile printing, biotechnological applications, and even a bit of ice cream. So those are the uses of the seaweeds, and of course we use seaweeds as food. But we have a greater challenge which is coming up, that is the demand for the energy. From where do you get the energy? So algae is one of the potential source of bioenergy in terms of its uses in the bioethanol as well as the biodiesel, where the seaweeds can act as a potential source of bioethanol, and microalgae will be a very good source of biodiesel, and it has several advantages. I'll tell you subsequently. Okay, algae has been used as food in several oriental countries, in China or Japan or in Korea, mostly the seaweeds, as a source of food because of its nutritional value. So it has a century-old history. Similarly, the microalgae like spirulina has been also used in Africa for centuries because of its nutraceuticals, food, and other medicinal values. Now, obviously, algae as a food has been a tremendous use in various countries, and the demand for the algal food is increasing day by day because of its various high value. Algae can be a very good source of food, especially if you see the third world countries where there is a high rate of malnutrition. People are getting food, but they are deficient in the micronutrients. So malnutrition is a major problem, where the algae can be used as a food supplement to combat the malnutrition, and that's very important. That's where it will play a major role. Now, coming to aquaculture. Aquaculture is the second biggest industry next to agriculture, where large number of people have been employed in the aquaculture activities. But extensive and intensive aquaculture have damaged the system so badly that you need some organism which can basically remove the extra nutrients like nitrate and phosphate from this aquaculture system. So the best way is to use the seaweeds as a nutrient scrubber, which can basically stop polluting these ponds and remove these extra nitrogen and phosphate from the ponds. And it's a very good thing, and we have done a lot of work on this, and you can see that how successfully we have integrated Gracilaria cultivations into prawn and fish ponds in Chilica, and it has been showing extremely good results, and the future lies in the integrated aquaculture. Algae is a very good candidate for bioremediations, whether it is wastewater treatment or it's municipal waste which is getting discharged to the sea and everything, or its various industrial effluents. Microalgae has been used as a bioremediation agent to cleanse this, to bind the heavy metals and everything. There are also macroalgae which can be used for the bioremediations in the sea or in the enclosed aquaculture system, where it can bind the nuclear waste or radioactive waste into this. It is also a very good source of used for the artificial reef constructions, and these artificial reef constructions helps in basically taking out the heat from the nuclear power plant. If you go behind the nuclear power plant, which discharge a lot of heat to the sea, and if you put this artificial reef where the seaweeds grow, they basically takes care of the extra heat. So this is a very good system by which it can balance the marine ecosystem to a great extent. And there are several uses of algae in the bioremediation. But at the moment there are few species of algae which are used for this purpose, but we need to find out more applications and more species for this particular purpose. During the last 5 years, algae has received a lot of media attention, both in United States of America and Europe especially, and also all over the world. Now that's mainly because of the algae has been projected as one of the best sources for biofuels. Now when there is a fight or there is a conflict between the food versus feed, food versus fuel, the people have come out, the scientists have come out that algae can be one of the crop which will not compete with food, thus can be a very good source for the next generation's biofuel. Last week I was present in the Algal Biomass Organization meeting in the United States of America, where a large number of industries have invested a lot of venture capital money, and a large number of companies have come up. Even the US defense is trying to have self-sufficient on its energy requirements, on its fuel requirements for its military, and the requirement is huge, and which the food crops like soybean, food crops like corn, food crops like palm oil will not be able to produce that much of amount of biomass. If proper emphasis will be given to algae, it can really turn into a very good source of energy crops. So a lot of investment is pouring in. You have in Europe the European Biofuel Association or Biodiesel Association. They have been trying very hard but the biggest challenge is to get the right type of algae which can give a good percent of oil. Any algae which can give you more than 40% of lipids is a very good source of commercial source. But the biggest challenge is people are trying to introduce genetically modified fat algae, and that's a point need to be debated. And if the genetically modified algae is introduced to the aquatic ecosystem, what type of impact it will have in the whole food chain, in the whole aquatic ecosystem, that study needs to be worked out. And there is a greater challenge in study of algae, in all aspects of algae. We must start algae education from the childhood in the school. That's the most important thing. We must teach the students in the school what is the importance of algae. Once they know the importance of algae at the school level, then 90% of our problems will be solved. We don't need to tell the politicians or the policymakers or the scientists what to do about algae, because presently people think that algae is completely useless and people do not know the uses of algae. You go to the sea coast where you will find there are a lot of algae and they are dried up, sometimes they are decomposed and it's smelling badly, so people think that these are all useless plant. But once they come to know, you try to teach them in a layman's language, this is being used and you use in your day-to-day life, and this can change the quality of life. If you go for the algae cultivation, this can give you a large number of employment, and then this can change the quality of life. So this is very important. So in my opinion, you need to do a few things. First of all, you have to create awareness amongst the people in various strata of the societies that start from the top to the bottom, number one. Number two, we need to put a lot of money in algal research and its popularizations. Number three, a lot of print media as well as the electronic media should come and tell the importance of algae to the rest of the world. And if you see, China, Japan, Korea and other oriental countries are using algae in such a big way. You go to any departmental store, you will find algae. Now we in India are trying to cultivate algae in a big way, and we are using for its social development. Now algae will be used to combat acidification of ocean, which is a major challenge. On this program, we had a meeting in UNESCO in last May 2010, how to combat the acidification of ocean. So algae can play a major role. Then we have already formed an Asian network for using algae to combat global warming. This program is headed by Korea, and I am a member of that committee. So what happens, what we are trying to do is that if you cultivate a large scale algae in the sea, this is indirectly going to remove a lot of carbon dioxide from the sea. As a result, you are going to combat the global warming to some extent. Like I have filed a patent recently to have an innovation I have developed an innovative method by which you can capture the carbon dioxide not only from the atmosphere but also from the automobiles and power plants. So newer and newer applications of algae are coming up, and we should do a lot of things about algae to save our planet. That's very important. Now, what is important, you are a 8-year-old child, so I will not speak anything about algae to you. First, I will give you a scoop or a cup of ice cream to eat, and once you eat that ice cream, then I will ask you a question. Do you know how this ice cream is having so tasty and so smooth? Then I will tell, okay, one of the ingredients in this ice cream comes from algae. If you are eating a medicine, then I will tell, okay, in this medicine you have little bit of algae. So once you know the uses of algae, then you will be much more interested to know more and more about the algae. As an 8-year-old student, I don't want to tell you anything about science. What I want to tell you is, you are using everyday algae. The cloth which you are wearing here, this has printing, so algae helps in textile printing. The chocolate which you are eating, so algae is there. The candy which you are eating, chocolate is there. The ketchup which you are eating, the burger which you are eating. So you are eating a little bit of algae every day in your life. So if you are eating something, you should care for it. That's very important. Then only you will develop interest in algae. We need to encourage our students to study algae in a much more interesting way rather than having a boring classroom way. That's very important. Okay, sustainable development is a word which is very commonly now used all over the world, starting from politicians to the academics to the social workers to educationists to bureaucracy. Everybody is using. But the biggest challenge is to practice the sustainable development. That's the biggest challenge. The requirements of the society, the requirements of the people have gone up substantially. The lifestyle has changed substantially, and our energy consumption has gone substantially. At the same time, what has happened, the water is polluted, the air is polluted, and our food quality is also polluted. So what we need to do is, we need to have development in one side, and also we need to provide a clean environment on the other side. So what is happening is now the development is unequal. Some parts it's getting more developed, some parts there is no development, some parts there is unorganized development. So what we need to do is, we need to create a balance between the development and the environment, so that the whole life system on the earth can survive in an effective and balanced manner. That is sustainable development. We need to survive, we need to coexist in a peaceful manner with clean water, clean air, and a good quality of life. I am an optimist, not a pessimist. I see the glass as half full, not half empty. And I see that there is a greater challenge in algae, in commercialization of algae, and using algae for social development. Slowly the message is spreading, although it's slow, but it's spreading its wing. If you see in the algal biofuel research during the last couple of years, more than $1 billion has been spent. A lot of awareness is coming in this area, but there are also challenges. So I'm very optimistic. I started in a very small way, but I am able to spread my message. I am very happy that we have organized the first All India coordinated project on the large scale seaweeds cultivation all along the Indian coast. One of my greatest challenge is to create a brew liver division around the Indian coast, to create 1 million jobs through the seaweeds cultivation, which can employ a large number of people, 1 million people, both directly and indirectly through the utilization of algae. Okay, I am from a small area called Puri, which is 2,000 kilometers away from Delhi. I grew up in a coastal town. I came to Delhi, which is the capital of India, and I thought I'll do something very challenging. So in my first phase of research, I tried to do something on the higher plants, to do something in the garden, to do something in the laboratory, but that didn't excite me. So I wanted to do something more innovative, which can excite me, which can be more adventurous. So when I looked for the whole system, I found that algae is the organism which can fit into my area, and that can give a lot of challenge, because you travel a lot, you go to various parts of the world, to the remote areas, and in these remote areas you try to explore, you meet new people, you see new destinations, you face greater challenges, and then how to convert the challenges into the opportunities. The biggest challenge in life is how to convert the challenges into the opportunities. And one of my most excitement challenges came when I tried to go to Antarctic to explore for the existence of algae. And that was a greater challenge, and that was quite exciting, to go to a new continent and look for algae. Then I traveled across the world, studied algae across the world in various habitat, various environment, came back to India and tried to integrate the basic knowledge with applied knowledge to the commercial part, and that was a bigger challenge, where 99% of the technology fails when it gets transferred from the field to the laboratory, from the laboratory to the field. So that is the challenge, and we have done some work, and it is doing pretty well in the field. And we have a bigger challenge ahead. We will continue to do that. I am the driver of the Algonaut. The Algonaut Miss Dr. Arnie is now going to the downtown, to the city, and I am the seaweed farmer who is driving her to the city.
Ba